So this is 7.4 notes, angles of elevation and depression. There are two major concepts in this lesson, and if you get those, then you're going to be pretty good. All right, first is angle of depression. And the angle of depression is just the angle that's formed between the observer's sight line, and that's the line that follows what the observer is looking at, right? And the horizontal line that leads to basically the eye of the observer, all right? And that is called the angle of depression if the observer is looking down, okay? So that's the angle of depression. The angle of elevation is basically the same thing, only if the observer is looking up. So if the observer is looking up, their sight line is pointing up, and the horizontal line is still from the observer's eye, just straight on, just a horizontal line. And then we're looking at the angle made by that horizontal line and the sight line. And that's elevation if the observer is looking at something above that horizontal line. So when we're talking about angle of elevation, we're basically talking about how far you're looking up. When we're talking about angle of depression, we're talking about how far or how many degrees you're looking down. Now here's something to be aware of. The angle of elevation or angle of depression is the angle between the line of sight and the horizontal line, all right? Not the vertical line. Okay. That's where a lot of people are going to get mixed up. So let's take a look at example number 1 and see what I mean by that. Now, in example number 1, it says the angle of depression from a plane to a grove of trees is 26 degrees. Now remember, it's the angle of depression is between the line of sight and the horizontal line. So where's the horizontal line? It's right here. Where is the line of sight? The line of sight is along the hypotenuse of my triangle here. So the angle of depression is this angle right there. And that's 26 degrees. Find the altitude of the plane. Remember, the altitude just means how high is your plane. Okay? So we've got three things right here. We've got the altitude that they're asking us for. We've got the angle of depression. And we've got the side that's given. This is the line of sight. So the plane is 7 kilometers from the forest. Well, we really need the angle inside the triangle, this angle right here, right? So the angle inside the triangle is just 90 minus 26. Now, why is it 90? Because this whole thing right here, this whole angle is 90 degrees. So if you subtract 26 from that 90, you're going to get what's left for this angle right here. So that will be 64 degrees. Okay, now we have enough to set up a trig function, and we have the hypotenuse that we know of right here. So we've got hypotenuse, and we've got the side that's touching my angle, and so that's going to be the adjacent side. And what is adjacent over hypotenuse? Which trig function do we use to find adjacent over hypotenuse? Well, for that, you're going to have to remember your SOHCAHTOA, and you're going to have to remember the ka of your SOHCAHTOA. Ka, adjacent over hypotenuse, is cosine. Okay, so the cosine of 64, because remember, our angle over here is 64 degrees, right? So cosine of 64 goes right over there, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And let's write that out as cosine of 64 equals my adjacent side was my x over my hypotenuse right here was my 7 kilometers. So now I just cross multiply. 7 times 64 is just, 7 times the cosine of 64 is just 7 times cosine of 64. That's it. Equals, now think of the cosine as cosine over 1, and that way we can cross multiply on this side of the equation. So we say 1 times x. Well, 1 times x is just x. So great. Now you have x equals 7 times the cosine of 64. And this we just plug into our calculator. You're going to find the cosine button on your calculator. And so go ahead and do that now. You'll do 7 times the cosine of 64, and don't forget to close those parentheses, and then just hit enter, and you'll get x equals 3.068, so we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, 3.07. So the altitude of the plane is, here we'll bring it over here, 3.07 kilometers. That's how high the plane is in the air. Alright, so let's try it again with example number 2. Now remember, if I'm going too fast for you on any of these, pause, work it out for yourself, stop the video and rewind and go over concept again. Okay. The angle of elevation. Now remember, that's how high the person is looking up, right? Elevation means up. Okay, the angle of elevation, that should be an arrow, from Fred to his work building is 31 degrees. Oh, that is my bell here, so I'm going to stop this real quick and continue on. Okay, I'm back. Oh, there's a large echo here. All right, anyway. The angle of elevation from Fred to his work building is 31 degrees, and so we can mark that. Here's Fred, and the angle of elevation from where his horizontal line is that meets his eye to his line of sight is 31 degrees, right? Okay. Oop. If the building is 95 feet tall and Fred's eye level is 6 feet tall, then how far away is Fred from the building? Alright, so let's take this 95 feet tall. 95 feet. And Fred's eye level is 6 feet tall. So there is 6 feet of this 95 feet that is just Fred's eye level. So the side of this triangle is going to be 95 feet minus 6 feet, which is 89 feet. Alright. So now we're asked to find how far is Fred away from the building, and so that would be this leg right here. Okay. Now that we have these 3 pieces of information, we've got the angle that we know, we've got the side that we're trying to find, and we've got the side that we know. We can set up a trig function. Remember, we only need those three pieces of information. Well, here's our angle that we know, and this side right here is opposite this angle, right? So we're going to label that side as opposite. Okay. And the side that has the X on it is touching my angle right there. So that's going to be adjacent. So we're dealing with OA. And remember, from SOHCAHTOA, so OH, no, that doesn't work. That's opposite over hypotenuse. AH, no, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. TOA, OA, opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of that angle right here, 31, right, equals our opposite over our adjacent right here. So opposite is 89 over adjacent is X. Okay, now here's something. When we cross multiply, remember, we're looking at this as this. Here's a dirty little secret that you can do. You can take your X right here, you can put it over here, and then you can take your tangent and move it down here. So basically that's cross multiplying, just moving those guys around like that. So you end up with X, here, that goes to X equals 89 over the tangent of 31, right? And then, so you enter that into your calculator, and you get, we'll move this over here, X equals 148.12 feet. And that's your answer. That's how far away Fred is from his building. Remember, we always round to the nearest hundredth, which means 2 places from the decimal point right here. Okay. So that's all the work for example number 2. Example number 3, they want you to try this. So let's try this together. Name the angle of depression shown below. Well, I'll let you try this for a second. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can name this angle of depression. Okay. Well, hopefully you tried to name it. Remember, it's from the horizontal line to the line of sight. And so it's this angle right there. And the name of that angle is TSU. Angle TSU. Okay. I would not have accepted angle S because S can refer to this whole thing. Really, this point is just S. So we need to make it more specific. TSU. That angle right there. Okay. B. A person is standing in his high-rise apartment looking out his window at a dog. The angle of depression is 75 degrees. What is the height of the window if the dog is 120 feet away from the building? Alright? The first thing I want you to do right now is just do the picture. Just draw it on your notes and don't solve it yet. So hit pause and try to do the picture. Alright. Hopefully you came up with something that'll look like this. He's got his high-rise apartment. He's in his high-rise apartment here. So you've got a high-rise apartment. You've got a guy. We'll put him in a window here. There he is. And he's looking down at a dog. He sees a dog on the ground. That's my dog. guess he needs back legs too. All right, and the angle of depression is 75 degrees. So remember, the angle of depression is the angle made between the sight line and the horizontal line. So it's how far he's looked down, right? He's looked down 75 degrees. What is the height of the window? And so what is the height of the window? That's our x. If the dog is 120 feet away from the building. And say the dog is 120 feet. All right. So we have three things. We have what we're asked to find. We have the angle of depression, and we have a given side. But remember, we still need to know what this angle is. We've got the angle of depression, but we don't have this angle. So remember, we've got the whole angle here is going to be 90 degrees, right? This whole angle is 90 degrees. So to find our angle in our triangle, we just take 90 and we subtract 75 from it. That gives us 15, and so this angle is 15 degrees. Well, now we know that we can do a trig function, and just like before, we have our opposite here, opposite, and right here on this side we have our adjacent, right? And so we've got OA, so that sounds like TOA to me. So tangent, and what is our angle? Our angle is 15, right? Tangent of 15 is equal to our opposite, which is 120 feet, over our adjacent, which is the x that we don't know yet. And remember, our quick and easy kind of cheat for this is to take the x, move it over here, take the tangent, move it over there. Whoops, my x is going crazy here. Alright, and now we've got x equals 120 over the tangent of 15. Alright, and remember, the long way to do that is just cross multiplying, but basically every time you have an x in the denominator, you can just switch places with whatever is on the other side of the equal sign. So go ahead and plug that into your calculator, hit pause, see what you get. You should have gotten x equals 447.846, so we'll just call it 85 feet. So the height of the window was 447.85 feet. So the guy is living way far up in the air in his high-rise apartment. Okay, let's look at this last one. I'm going to erase this stuff here. If Betty's eye level is 5 feet, so that means that her eye level right here is 5 feet off the ground. Okay, and we'll just mark that as 5 feet. Okay, and then the angle of elevation is 43, so the angle that she is looking up that is 43 degrees. How tall is the tower? So what we're looking for is how tall is the tower all the way down. Now notice, we're looking for the entire height of the tower, but our actual triangle that we're trying to find is only going to show us up to that 5 feet that Betty's eye level is. So once we're done, we're going to have to add 5 feet to this entire side. Okay, because this is our triangle and it's 5 feet above the ground, we're asked to find how high the tower is. Now, how high the tower is. Now we've got our angle, 43. We've got this side that is on the opposite side of the triangle, so we're going to call that opposite. And we've got the longest side of the triangle is always called the hypotenuse. So H, O, and I can't remember what just off the top of my head, so I'm going to have to do my Katoa. S is, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Hey, look at that, opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so sine of 43 degrees, right, equals my opposite, which is my x, over my hypotenuse, which is 250 feet. Now I'm going to cross multiply here, so I'm going to put 1 over that, and I cross multiply. Okay, and so that just means that I bring this 1 times here, and I bring my 250 feet all the way over here. And that didn't go too well. I'm going to erase this here. Okay, so 250 feet times the sine of 43 is equal to x. I'll rewrite that in nice, clear fashion here. 250 times sine of 43 equals x, right? So we can just plug that into your calculator. Go ahead and plug that into your calculator, and you can hit pause. You should have gotten x equals 170.499, so we're just going to call that, we're going to round up to 50 there, feet. Now we're not exactly done with this, because we know that x equals 170.50 feet. And remember that this is our x. Well, what about this 5 feet right here? Because that's part of the tower too. So we just have to add those 5 feet. And the entire length of the tower from top to bottom now we know is 175.5 feet. All right. Well, that is 7.4. Remember, if you have any trouble with this, just go back, rewind, take another look at it, pause, write down the notes that you need to do, and still, if you're having trouble, just ask me during tutorials. Okay.